A fun one against the Avs, but unfortunately the Wild lose 2-1 in overtime. We had ourselves a little goalie battle in Colorado tonight as Alexander Georgiev and Filip Gustavsson traded big saves. We saw Brandon Duhaim's debut in a Colorado Avalanche uniform, and I'm not going to lie, I hated it. I hate the look of Duhaim in Avs colors, not used to it yet. And we'll talk about what ultimately decided this one for the Avs tonight. A big day. Trade deadline was earlier. So we got a lot to discuss here on tonight's Locked On Wild postcast. Come on in. The doctor will see you now.
You are Locked On Wild postcast, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? The Minnesota Wild fall tonight 2-1 in overtime to the Colorado Avalanche. And honestly, that game was a lot of fun. I enjoy watching the Avs execute their craft because they have just an absurd amount of talented players up and down their roster. And so the fact that the Wilds got up for this one and kept it close, 1-1 heading into overtime, ultimately falling 2-1 in OT. It was a fun game. There were chances back and forth. Both goalies made some crazy saves. Avs just are loaded. And so it's easy to tip your cap to the Colorado Avalanche in this one. They got Valeri Nichushkin back for this game, so obviously get a huge bump there. But there's another angle to this that I think needs to be discussed is the effort level is clearly there against teams like the Colorado Avalanche. But where is it against other teams throughout the NHL? Like you can go to war against a team like the Colorado Avalanche, but then we have the losses against the Anaheim Ducks, against the Arizona Coyotes, against the all these other teams. You have these inexplicably bad performances, which I think just underscore kind of how this season has gone in general. Like if the Wild simply did this more consistently, they would not be in the current position that they're in. And so we get to this point in the season and like there's a lot of really good to discuss from this game. But you look at kind of where things are at and you're like, boy, if you beat Buffalo, if you find a way to beat Buffalo in one of the two games, if you find a way to beat the Anaheim Ducks before the All-Star break, like those are the types of performances you can't have. So let's talk about the things that went well here tonight. Filip Gustavsson looked really good after a very rocky outing against the San Jose Sharks. Filip Gustavsson was on his A game here in this one tonight. Gave up the early goal on the first shot that he took 42 seconds into the game. But then after that, he was nails. He locked it down all the way until the end of the game. And let's talk about this too. I tweeted this at the end of the game because obviously the Avs scored that goal in front. Valeri Nichushkin able to tap that puck in at the end of the game. I don't think it matters who's out there on the penalty kill in OT, the 4-on-3 penalty kill. I think that was just one of those bounces that went the Avs' way to end the game. Filip Gustavsson took a full swing at the puck to try to poke it away from the front of the net. He just didn't have enough room to get to the puck, and Nichushkin beat Zach Bogosian to the puck as well. And so, it even at the end, I don't know what you really do differently if you're the Minnesota Wild. It's just another weapon for this Avs team that is able to to get them the win here tonight. And as you would expect after the game, the standard chorus after this one of, hey, Wild's got their game back on track here against the Arizona Coyotes and the Colorado Avalanche. They pick up 3 of 4 points. Time to go on a run. Folks, we have seen this all season. We've seen this refrain all season. And that what if just has never come. So we'll talk about that, but let's continue with the good here tonight. I was super excited about what we saw from Marco Rossi here tonight. I think really responded to what was probably one of his worst games of the season with a real solid effort here tonight. He was shooting the puck. And I know we have wanted to see we've wanted to see a few different players in that wing spot opposite of Matt Zuccarello and Marco Rossi. Ryan Hartman got that spot tonight, but guess what? Even though that line didn't score, I thought they played pretty darn well in this one tonight, especially down the stretch. That line had a full shift in which they had 5 or 6 really good looks to try to crack Alexander Georgiev. So I thought that line combination did some good things here tonight. And if that's the line combination that gets Marco Rossi back to where he was at earlier in the season, I'm all for it. I liked what we saw from Adam Beckman tonight. He had a couple of opportunities, missed the net on his couple of shot opportunities, but was aggressive with moving the puck up the ice and pushing it towards the net. Had one opportunity in which he had a 2-on-1 with Freddie Gaudreau. Gaudreau opted to shoot the puck on Georgiev as opposed to passing. And I'm not even going to fault Freddie for that, because that's one of those bam, bam instinct plays where you either shoot the puck at the goalie or you pass it across to the other player for the 2-on-1 to try for an opportunity there. And Gaudreau made the decision to shoot. And as opposed to many other times in which we've seen this team just straight up not get those opportunities, I'm at least glad that it ended in a shot. By and large, there just was a lot of solid play from this Wild team in this one tonight. And coming against one of the best teams in the Central Division is something that is something that you need to have if you're going to play against teams of this type. But again, like, if you could just do this more consistently this season, you're in a far different spot than you currently are. But we too often have seen instances this season of both games against the Buffalo Sabres, the Anaheim Ducks game before the All-Star break, the Columbus Blue Jackets game at the beginning of the season, in which the Wild just got destroyed, and the Blue Jackets had played this were playing on the second night of a back-to-back. All those opportunities add up in the end. And so you have a road trip in which you do what you need to do. You get 3 out of 4. That's true. But, like, you got to play Nashville on Sunday, and guess what? Nashville's got some reinforcements coming in because they bought at the trade deadline. And so that's going to be a tough one. And it's just a perfect encapsulation of everything that we have seen this season. That penalty shot by Matt Zuccarello ultimately was the game. And Zuccarello had Georgiev absolutely on the hook. He had him. He took the bait. He took the bait on the fake. He tried to go with the backhand. And The puck slid off the front of his stick as opposed to simply following the stick into the net. That's one of those percentage plays that if that goes the Wild's way, this likely is a different outcome, but it didn't. And that has been the case for this season pretty much all year as well. Seeing some comments as well, a lot of shots that missed the net. I'm going to see if I can find the actual number here because it seems very high. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to. Maybe I can if I go all the way down here. Yeah, no, that's not working. There were a lot of missed shots in this one tonight. Beckman had a couple. Boldy had 3 shots on net, 2 shots missed. Eriksson Ek had 1 shot that missed. Gaudreau had 1 that missed. Hartman had 2 that missed. Kaprizov had 2 that missed. Lucchini had 3 that missed. Rossi had 4 that missed. Mason Shaw had 3 that missed. Zuccarello missed. Bogosian missed. Brodin missed. Chisholm missed. Murmis missed 3 times. And here's the funny thing, too. John Merrill is evidently so bad in this game that ESPN is refusing to even acknowledge that he played in their box score. They have Bogosian, Brodin, Chisholm, Faber, and Murmis listed as the defensemen. Nobody else. So evidently only 5 guys played on defense for the Wild in this one. So it's, I don't want to beat I don't want to beat a dead horse at this point in the season because we're 63 games in, and I think you get to about 20 or 30 games into the season and you pretty much are what you are. Rings true for this team. 20 games into the season, they're doing the same things that they were doing 63 games into the season, they're doing the same things that they were doing 20 games in. So it's just pretty much a microcosm of how the season has gone. That's the reason that you were sellers at the trade deadline. That's the reason that we're starting to hear more of the rhetoric of looking to the future, which is good. That's the reason that we're starting to see all of that is, you've squandered opportunities this season, and now it's time to accept that it's time to take a peek to the future. So it was a fun game against the Avs. Ultimately, Colorado wins because they just have more top-end guys, top-end talent than the Minnesota Wild do. And next game's coming up on Sunday. So we will, of course, continue. We're just getting started here in tonight's postcast. So we will take your questions. We will we'll talk about some of the things that we saw in this one. Anything you want to fire at me here, we will definitely run through. Minnesota Wild fall tonight by a score of 2-1 to the Colorado Avalanche. And Brandon Duhaime's first game in a Colorado Avalanche uniform, and I could not be more depressed. Gonna miss that. Gonna miss having that presence on this team, but obviously excited for his opportunity with the Avalanche, because I think he'll play a legitimate role on that team. And you saw it tonight. He immediately got thrust in on the penalty kill and did some really good things. So first game with Duhaime in uniform for the Avs. I'm in a world of hurt. Let's talk about the game. Let's talk about your questions. Let's get to all of that as we continue tonight's Locked On Wild postcast. The Wild lose tonight 2-1 in OT. Your questions coming up after this. You're listening to tonight's Locked On Wild postcast. More to come after this. Tonight's Locked On Wild postcast is brought to you by Factor. Eating better is easy with Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals. Every fresh, never frozen meal is chef-created, dietitian approved, and ready to go in just 2 minutes. You'll have over 35 different options to choose from every week, including Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. There are also more than 60 add-ons to help you stay fueled up and feeling good all day long. What are you waiting for? Get started today and get after your goals. Everything from pancakes to smoothies and more. Discover a wide variety of easy options for the entire day, like breakfast, midday bites, and more. Folks, I got to tell you, their plant-based shakes are to die for. And as somebody who is on the road quite a bit and trying to avoid the gas station lineup as much as possible, those delicious shakes are perfect meal replacements, whether you're on the go or you are just trying to make better choices even at breakfast. They are perfect options along with Factor's wide lineup of meals. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 and use code LockedOnNHL50 to get 50% off. That's code LockedOnNHL50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 for 50% off. Factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50. Tonight's Locked On Wild postcast is also brought to you by Indeed. No matter how the last game went, anytime you take the field, you've got a shot at greatness. Give your team the best shot at winning by recruiting more MVPs with Indeed. If you're hiring, you need Indeed, because Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Indeed partners with you on every step of the hiring process. Find great talent through time-saving tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. With Instant Match, as soon as you sponsor a post, you get a short list of quality candidates with resumes on Indeed that match your job description, and you can invite them to apply right away. Plus, you only pay for quality applications that meet your must-have requirements. Start hiring right now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/LockedOn. Offer valid through March 31st. Go to Indeed.com/LockedOn to claim your $75 credit before March 31st. That's Indeed.com/LockedOn. Indeed.com/LockedOn. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Welcome back to tonight's Locked On Wild postcast. Minnesota Wild fall by a score of 2-1 in overtime to the Colorado Avalanche. Again, a fun game to watch here tonight, but ultimately the Wilds fall in this one, and they come back home picking up 3 of 4 points on the road trip. Let's get to your comments, and I want to start first. As Amanda pointed out, thank you for liking the new mic stand. Okay, so just to nerd out slightly, the new desk is here. Put it together. I will share a photo of it on our community page. Put the new desk together. Was using my dining room table, and it had this weird lip in which I could not fasten the mic arm to it. New desk does not have that lip. And so I was able to fasten the mic stand to it to where now I have full range of hand and don't have to like hold on to the mic stand so that it falls down. Fully movable, fully adjustable, but just has way more of a feel of like a legitimate desk, and obviously dual monitors, ads on one, stats on the other. This is peak. I'm in my Colorado Avalanche roster desk setup, and feel like I have fully like elevated the production, other than working on getting a green screen for behind me. So that's going to unlock an entire new realm of possibilities when we get there. So enough nerd from me. Let's get to this. Let's get to these questions. When Marat Huznadinov, which, by the way, from what I was told by a couple of people in messages tonight, Huznadinov is in Minnesota. So should see him at practice hopefully tomorrow, and we'll go from there. When Huznadinov gets here, do you think trying Rossi on the wing would have any potential of working? I feel like Marco, who has had a good effort game, needs to discover new ways to score and create. So this is a good question because there are a few different ways I think that this lineup could work out. If it were me, I would like to see Rossi and Huznadinov get some time together. So here's what I would suggest. Here's what I would like to see. I'd like to see Huznadinov get some time with Rossi as a wing for a few games. Just to see, because that is kind of one of the things that we've heard about Marat is that he has the capabilities to play both wing and center. I'd like to see him get an opportunity. See if that works with Rossi as his center, because we've seen it enough with all the different players that have played center for the Wild this year. Having that versatility piece, like you can just slide somebody else to wing if you need to make room for Huznadinov to get some time at center. I'd like to see him get an opportunity to do both. I'd like to see him get some games at wing. I'd like to see him get some games at center. So I would like to see both of them try it and, go a few games with him at the wing and then evaluate and kind of see where they're at. That's these next 19 games for Huznadinov. Now that you've made spots in the lineup for him to play by getting rid of Duhaime, Dewar, and Maroon, you've opened up spots to be able to get him into the lineup. So play him and try him at a few different spots. Like just see what he's got. See if there's something that he is more comfortable with right off the bat and prosper, at least in the future. B. Lake joining us, and I think I did already answer about Beckman. And then I thought he did some good things here tonight. It's the thing that I'm looking for some of these young players is just make an impact. Like we've seen so many cardio minutes for these veteran guys this season. Just make an impact on your shift, on a rush, on the power play, wherever you're at. Just make an impact and make positive plays. And I thought Beckman had some good moments in this one. I only played 9 minutes in it, largely because this game was close all the way up until the end. But, coming off of a game against Arizona in which he played 13, that's more than what Vinny Lettieri got, slightly less than what Jake Lucchini got. So let's keep it rolling into Sunday's game against the Predators. But yeah, back to this. That's the first point. This is the first point that the Wild have accumulated against the Avs, Stars, and Jets the entire season. This is the first point that they have grabbed against any of those teams. That's a little startling to me about kind of where this team is at. So I know, and I've kind of harped on this, but at the same time, like, if you're a general manager, you're not going to come out and directly say, like, we have no shots. We're not gonna make the postseason. Like, obviously, you're going to, until you're mathematically eliminated, you're going to say that you're continuing to push for that spot. But every instance in which there's been a critical must-win game, they all kind of come down to the same things. And just there really hasn't been one particular area that the Wilds can kind of hang their hat on that they have been good at consistently. The only thing they have been good at consistently is being inconsistent. And that's not something that you typically see from a playoff team. Got to practice simulated shooting on net situations. This is, I think, my biggest gripe with this team is that there just are so many shots that don't get to the target. And so if you can, as a team collectively, work on that a lot in the offseason, if you can take that 30% of your shots that just completely miss the net and cut that even by 3 to 4%, which is not a huge number, but it just makes everything else kind of elevate. It means that you're getting more shots on goal. It means that you've got more scoring opportunities. It means that you've got more opportunities to actually put the puck in the net. So if the team can collectively up that percentage from its current, I think the last time I looked, they were at about 34% of their shots that just completely miss the net. I'm pulling that up right now. Percentage of unblocked shot attempts that miss the net. The Wild are 6th in the NHL at 32.33%. If they get to 28%, they would end up being, if they can even improve 3% to 29%, that would drop them into the bottom 4. The Colorado Avalanche right now are at 29.69% of shots that miss the net. And so this isn't going to be a number that you drop a ton, but even if you can cut 2 to 3% off of that number, that just ups everything all the way down to scoring goals. And so that needs to be a big focus. There are a lot of swings and misses on one-timers and just shots from the top of the zone from out far from the net that just don't really have a chance. Not only that, but we have seen this time and time again that that extra pass, like this is not basketball, where if you make that extra pass, you find a wide open shooter. If you make that extra pass, a lot of times the opposing goalie has the opportunity to react and get himself in position to block the shot. If there are opportunities to shoot, let it rip. Let it fly. Let it go. Shoot your shot. Shooters shoot. Whatever parallel, whatever hyperbole, whatever you want to use, shoot the puck. As someone who was whatever about Shaw coming back, dude looks like he hasn't lost a step. He might even have gained one, definitely earning his keep. And this is, I think, another reason as to why we saw the likes of Pat Maroon and Brandon Duhaime and Connor Dewar traded, was the fact that I think this team is comfortable rolling with a fourth line that includes Mason Shaw in it for the rest of the season. Because, Shaw brings some of that physical bite that is sorely lacking, and is especially sorely lacking considering who has moved at the deadline. So, and he certainly has contributed. Like I think of that long stretch pass to Kirill Kaprizov that sprung him for a goal. He's a player that has really good vision on the ice. And so making those sorts of plays, that's a big impact that he has provided so far. He's throwing his body body around, and so he continues to do that. I think he'll be just fine. Let's talk about the old Vegas Golden Knights. Golden Knights scuffling as of right now. They're 2 points back of the Nashville Predators for the final wild card spot, having lost 4 in a row and being 2-7-1 in their last 10. However, what did the Vegas Golden Knights do today? They added substantially to their mix of players. You get Noah Hannafin. You also find a way to get make just another solid deadline acquisition that I think shocked a lot of people. You get Tomas Hertl from the it never seemed like he was going to be on the table, and they go and they snag him because they got like 9 players on injured reserve. And it's funny too, because this always happens anytime the Vegas Golden Knights do this. Is everybody's like, how do they keep getting away with just blatant cap manipulation? Folks, it's something that's on the table for every single NHL franchise to do. Tampa Bay Lightning did this with Nikita Kucherov a few years ago, where he basically sat out the entire season. And then when there is no salary cap constraints for the postseason, they were able to add him back into the roster. No questions asked. That is how the rules are currently constructed. And until the NHL does something about it, teams are going to continue to operate like this. But I think the thing that is most striking about this this trade is that this is just who the Vegas Golden Knights are. They are a team that is consistently adding via trade, and you may retain players here or there, but a lot of the moves that they make are big swings. They have a GM who is a high roller, and you would expect nothing less from a team in Las Vegas. But not only the Golden Knights, Colorado Avalanche did the same thing. Because, and this is where the Wild are stuck. I'm gonna tangent here a little bit. This is where the Wild are stuck, and this is where I think they need to get to. The Vegas Golden Knights identified some players that they wanted to be part of their top 6, and they went and got them, and they locked them into deals. They got some high-end talent, traded for Jack Eichel, traded for Mark Stone, traded for Jonathan Marchessault. They bring all those guys in to be top 6 players, and they get them locked into contracts, and then they continue to cultivate their third and fourth lines and occasionally add guys that can play in the top 6 as needed. Colorado Avalanche, the same way. They locked in their top-end talent, and Colorado Avalanche have had to deal with trimming payroll quite a bit here over the last few years. Nazem Kadri, Andre Burakovsky, Philip Grubauer, Darcy Kemper. They have had major, and maybe not Darcy Kemper to an extent, but hey, he did win a Stanley Cup. So they have had some pretty solid players that have left the organization because they can't afford to give them the long-term deals they're looking for. But they have that top-end talent to begin with. And they continue to cultivate that bottom six, because you can find those types of guys on the trade market, on the free agent market. The Wilds found a bunch of players that they like that are probably on a playoff team, on a legitimate playoff team, are third or fourth line guys, and they locked them in with the inability to move them, when what they need to do is get their top six figured out. And they've got top line guys. They've got Kirill Kaprizov, you've got Joel Eriksson Ek, you've got Matt Boldy. Those are top six players, but they don't have that full top six. And the rest of the lineup is like fourth line guys, or guys that are playing middle six roles that are probably not equipped for it. I feel like the thing that separates good GMs is the willingness to be flexible. Obviously, you have your top end guys that you want to lock in, but just look at the roster cultivation for some of these top level GMs throughout the league. Look at what they're doing in Colorado. Look at what they're doing in Tampa Bay. Look at what Vegas has done. They just continue to reinforce that top level talent and add pieces around it to supplement. You can find physicality and grit on the trade market, on the free agent market. And you can bring somebody in as a rental. You can bring somebody in for maybe part of a season and then the next season. And then they walk and you find somebody else to fill that spot. And it feels like the Wild have just kind of prioritized that. And I know you've got Zach Parise and Ryan Suter continuing to point and laugh while they get paid to play elsewhere. But we went from let's wait out the buyouts to now, once the cap hits for Parise and Suter go back down, now you're going to have to be navigating through a bunch of guys who are most suited to play bottom six roles, and hope that the likes of Murat Kuznetsov, Danila Yurov, Liam Ugrin can step in and give you something top ends in that top six. I saw a comment on Twitter the other night, or on Hockey Wilderness, that somebody said the Wild view themselves as a playmaker and a defenseman away from being legitimate contenders. Let's talk about that for a second here too, and then I'll get back to the comments. But I just I was in the car for 3 hours today, and so I had a lot of time to just kind of think about the things that are going on with this team. It's not as simple as you are player X or player Y away, because you still have these underlying things that continue to be issues. Undisciplined play, generating power play opportunities for the opponent, inaccuracy at the net. Like, it really feels like there's going to have to be some major soul searching for this current group, because they just routinely show that they are not quite there. They're not quite where they need to be. And they'll get there. These prospects are supposed to be good. And so once we get there in a few years, but that's the hope. Sorry, I'm catching up to the comments here. Okay. You know, I really appreciate that we have at least one person in here who continues to just point out every single thing that I say that is incorrect. So thank you for correcting me on every single thing that I say that's not 100% accurate. This has been something that's been going on pretty much all season. And maybe it's the fact that I'm at the end of a long day, but I kind of get tired of it. I don't even. Yeah, we're just going to do that. Just get annoyed by people who continue to point out everything that is not accurate. Like, cool, awesome. So GA007 has been banned. Adios. All right, let's get back on track here. I don't like when the show gets derailed like that. The Wild have a game coming up on Sunday against the Nashville Predators. And you've had an opportunity to play against the Predators a few times this season. The last couple of times that the Wild have played the Predators, they have not gone particularly well. And so you've got to, you have to bring that battle level number one. And you got to get a good goalie performance, and you've got to get more than just your top level guys to be able to score. It's a simple formula for the Wild at this point in the season. It just has been so difficult to it's been so difficult to replicate over the course of the season. God, we are having a weird night in the comments here tonight. Why did the Wild give up on Connor Dewar? Great question, Del. I'm happy to answer it to try to get us back on track here. Honestly, I think here's my thought on Dewar and Duhaime. I think they ultimately paid the price for financial restraints that this team is under. I would have rather had those guys be players that you are looking to build around, because they're on the younger side. They're valuable contributors to the penalty kill. But I think ultimately I'll go back to my point that I made previously. I feel like third and fourth line guys are players that you can kind of plug in to the lineup pretty easily by having draft picks that you send to a team to make a trade, or signing somebody to a free agent contract for a couple of years to come in and play a role. I feel like you can find those guys more easily than you can top six guys. And so it just got to the end of the line with Duhaime and Dewar. There was really no discussions with their agents. about re-signing here. And so it was time to try to get something for Brandon Duhaime before he left. I feel like if the Wild didn't trade Duhaime by the trade deadline, they would have moved him in the offseason because he still has restricted free agency for next year. So whatever team the Wild were going to send him to, that team would have his rights for next year too. In reality, you weren't going to get a ton for those guys. The big key there is to free up the roster spots to allow you to bring players on like Kuznetsov, like Adam Beckman. You're freeing up those roster spots to be able to give them opportunities here. Because I guess the hope is with the likes of Marcus Foligno, with the likes of Ryan Hartman, the hope is that by the end of their contracts, they are filling those roles. That some of these young players, some of these rookies will play well enough to jump them in the lineup and to take those key spots that the Wilds need filled. As you look at the Wilds compared to Colorado tonight, Colorado's got two legitimate, loaded scoring lines, and they've got depth players on their third and fourth lines. The Wilds do not have the same level of horses, and to be fair, few teams do. They don't have the same level of horses as the Avalanche do. Dallas Stars, same situation. The Winnipeg Jets, same situation. All these playoff teams have legitimate lines, first and second line, full of scoring players. The Wild are still trying to figure it out with that second line. They've had good performances from a couple of guys on those spots, but by and large, they have not been able to put those complete lines together. The hope is that Kuznetsov or Yurov will take those spots and the rest of the lineup will fill it out. But the problem with the Wild right now is, since they don't have those guys, you're continuing to ask the likes of Ryan Hartman and Marcus Foligno to fill those spots. Steve's right on here. The Wilds built from the bottom up as opposed to the top down. If they can get it to where they get more legitimate top six guys, then they're going to be able to compete with those teams. But until they do, it's going to continue to be a struggle. Denny, I'm not ignoring you, I promise. I was just going on a little bit of a tangent there. This is absolutely accurate. That Guerin and his thoughts saying that it's time to start taking a look more at the future. He's the one that put this roster together, and I know we've got to keep in mind that you don't have the full deck, but use that as an opportunity. This is the thing that's most annoying about this is you don't have the full deck. So don't try to convince us that you do. This just, I go back to the end of last season. Perfect opportunity to go into this year. You weren't going to be able to make a ton of changes. Go into this season with a free slate and be able to move the likes of Matt Zuccarello, Ryan Hartman, Marcus Foligno. You're probably not going to get, because by and large, the returns at this deadline were not great. So you're not going to get a ton for those guys. But what it, I think, signals is that it's time to reassess where things are at. And there's no reason to say that you couldn't then re-sign one or two of those guys to come back and be part of this mix. But there were reports that there were teams sniffing around at Matt Zuccarello at this deadline. But because you got him locked in with trade protection, you can't take advantage of that. And the Zuccarello contract aside, I think the biggest issue is with the players like Marcus Johansson and Freddie Gaudreau. I'm going to keep going back to those guys because Hartman at least shoots the puck when he's out there. I know we get frustrated with the number of penalties that he takes, but by and large, he's still able to produce from a scoring perspective. Like you are mostly getting nothing from Freddie Gaudreau and Marcus Johansson, and you can't do anything about it. Like, because you rushed into those spots, you can't really do anything about that. You could have found somebody to sign for a year to fill Marcus Johansson's spot. You could have promoted from within. You are just getting like less than nothing from two key spots on this team. And it's just like, it just feels like you are kind of just making it acceptable that, well, because we can't really do anything with those guys, we just have to kind of live with the results. And it doesn't, like, other teams don't do that. Colorado Avalanche took a flyer. This might be the most critical example of this. Like, let's keep this in mind. The Colorado Avalanche took a flyer on Ryan Johansson this year from the Nashville Predators. Predators just were not getting anything from him, and so they were ready to move on. And the Avalanche traded for him. He was not doing a thing for Colorado this year. But because he didn't get signed to a deal that prevented him from being moved, the Avs sent him to the Philadelphia Flyers, who promptly waived him. And then they dealt from a position of strength by trading Bowen Byram to the Buffalo Sabres for Casey Middlestat, who made his Avs debut tonight against the Minnesota Wild. But the Avalanche were in a position to be able to make that decision because there was no trade protection attached to that deal. Trade protection is not naive to, it's not a Minnesota specific problem. There are other teams that deal with this. But the Wild are the only team that locked in a large majority of the team and now can't really do anything about it. So that's part of the frustration too, is that now that you are in a position, like, your return for Freddie Gaudreau is going to be minimal. Honestly, if you find a way to move him, the reward will be getting him off the roster. But like, it just feels like GMs don't get married to the roster. They just continually find ways to try to upgrade. That's all I'm saying. I wonder if players like Hurdle direct GMs where they want to be sent to. Guerin doesn't have a chance to attract top 6 names. You know, that's a lot. That's a fair point too. But it's just, I feel like here's another spin on this. I feel like Bill Guerin goes out of his way to reward loyalty to the team. if players want to stay, he rewards it to a fault. And I understand what he's trying to do. You want to have a team and a destination that players want to come to. But if you have most of your roster filled, players are going to look at Minnesota and say, well, if I go there, I'm going to be like a third or a fourth line guy or a second line guy because they have so many players that are already locked in and not really movable. So it's one thing to have, like Brandon Duhaime said, was asked after his trade, had nothing but good things to say about the Minnesota Wild organization and how he was treated as a player, how Bill Guerin handled the entire trade situation. Like, that's all well and good, but you don't get Stanley Cups for that. Like, you don't get trophies for being a team that is good at making players feel good. It comes down to winning on the ice. And this group has overachieved the last couple of seasons, and they all got rewarded for it. So it's two sides of the same coin. Like, David is right here too. We've seen Billy be ruthless about players not wanting to be here. Jack McBain, Ben Myers, Cam Talbot. It's like, I don't even disagree with the logic. If players don't want to be here, that was another reason that Ryan Johansson was traded from the Colorado Avalanche, is that he started to become a little bit of an issue in the locker room. But like, if players don't want to be here, you shouldn't have them here. I agree with that. But I feel like if it were me in charge, if I were GM of this team, I feel like I would say, okay, you want to stay, you want to be part of the group that we're building going forward, prove it on the ice. Prove it on the ice with your production, and we'll talk. That's where we're at, folks. It just was a rush. It just was a rush to lock in this group that had one season in which they scored an abnormal amount of goals. Abnormal amount of goals. 305, which is a franchise record. That's not sustainable. And then last year you had abnormal goaltending for most of the season. That clearly was not sustainable either. And I'm sorry, but viewing a team that scored 305 goals and saying, well, everybody just needs to do it again because we're going to lock in the entirety of the same group, except for Kevin Fiala, which turns out was a huge piece as to why that offense hummed like it did. It's like it's two things here. It's a culture of wanting to be somewhere on one side. This is where the Wild are at. It's a culture of wanting to be here versus where a team like the Colorado Avalanche are at. And it's a culture of wanting to win. That's the difference. Like, you're facilitating and like I'm piggybacking off of what Cinerari's saying in the comments. Most important thing is to hold your players to a standard of excellence, not loyalty. This is where Guerin has missed. Avalanche players are all expected to be excellent, and excellent players want to be there. This is it. Print this on a poster, get this as a tattoo, frame this. This is it in a nutshell. Players are expected to be excellent, and excellent players want to be there. Tampa Bay Lightning, great example of this. A team that went to four Stanley Cups in 6 seasons, or 3 and 5. I don't know. GA007 will probably correct me on that. It was either 3 and 5 years or 4 and 6. There was a little bit of a gap in there. But guess what? That's a standard of excellence. That's a standard that is demanded from those players. Colorado Avalanche, the same way. Vegas Golden Knights, the same way. You think about some of those other teams in the East that are consistently good. Look at what the Florida Panthers turned into when Paul Maurice, midway through the season last year, said, this isn't good enough. What we're doing right now isn't good enough. And they took off. And now you've got their general manager watching one of their defensemen blossom and emerge into this number one guy. But guess what? He's had more than like a 20-game span of doing so. And you lock him in, and your GM gets emotional in talking about it and saying that we really feel like we're building a winner. We feel like we are building a standard of excellence. That's, folks, this is the crux of what has gone wrong over these last couple of seasons. Like I'm so glad that everybody is able to be here and be part of this tonight, because this is it. If there is anything that you take away from the rest of this season, from what has gone on over these last couple of years, from what's gone on in the Bill Guerin tenure, is this right here. This is it. Well done, Cinerary. That's honestly, like, this is, I think Locked On Wild has found our mission statements for the rest of the season, the rest of going forward. A standard of excellence. That's where we're at. That's where we need to get to. We got it. We got it. Maybe it's a good thing that we go through these growing pains. Perhaps we will wake up going forward, but maybe we have even more to grow. We're going to get a good taste of what you learned from this situation once the cap hits are back down for Parise and Suter. Then you've got no excuses. You've got nothing that you can stand behind. And so that's going to be a see, now we have turned this into a really good bit that I'm going to just love going forward too. Postcasters like myself are expected to be excellent, and excellent chat posters want to be here. I'm going to go to all of the Locked On Wild social media tonight, and we're gonna change those bios to looking for a standard of excellence. We made a breakthrough here tonight. I love it. And that's why we do these. That's why we sit on here for an hour after a game's done and just vibe, just chat. And that's, I think, a perfect spot to John Merrill traded Nick Patan to the Rangers. Folks, I haven't done a ton on the trade department here tonight because I'm going to do an episode tomorrow for you recapping all the trades. And I'm glad that I waited because we found our mission statement going forward is trying to find that standard of excellence. That standard of excellence that will be Denny's podcast once that gets rolling. That'll be a standard of excellence. So, folks, my work for tonight is done because we have found, Cinerary found the single thing that is going to be my focus for the rest of this season and beyond is creating a standard of excellence and demanding a standard of excellence. I'm gonna have episodes to go off of for that through the rest of the off season. This is how we move forward. This is one of the things that I've kind of struggled with just as this season has unfurled. How do we go forward? This is like I hope I'm not nerding out too much here, but like this is just what I power through with here as we move along. And we've got Denny. Should stop karate chopping the mic stands. We've got some elite guests courtesy of Denny's great work that will be coming on the show once the season is done, that will be helping us further try to find that standard of excellence. So, ladies and gentlemen, hit that like button. I am going to sleep like $1,000,000 tonight. And all of you should too, because we found that guiding statement through the rest of the season. I can't even disagree here. Johnny Vibes, with that standard of excellence for growing a mullet. He excels in that area. He excels in growing a mullet. So let's all find that standard of excellence. Let's all find that standard of hitting the like button before you head out here for the night. And I can promise you this. Locked On Wild will continue to strive for that standard of excellence throughout the rest of this season, including tomorrow's episode, recapping the trade deadline and looking at the names that the Wild got back in return. That was a little bit of a surprise for me. So we actually got some prospects back in return. So we'll talk about those players. We'll talk about what it means that Bill Guerin is hoarding all of these 2026 draft picks, because there are now a lot. We'll talk about all that coming up tomorrow, but I have a standard of sleep to get to. And again, this is why we do this. This is why every single one of you that was in here tonight was part of the next step in this show. This is a landmark moment. This is a landmark moment for Locked On Wild. So thank you all for being a part of it here this evening. Again, thank you all so much for all the support. I know I've kind of been public about the grind that I've been on here for the last 3 weeks. We're getting to the end of that. We're getting to the end of the line, which means that I'm going to be able to throw more time at this, throw more to my own standard of excellence as we continue to push this train forward. And yes, Will, Wild looks fine. Just came down to came down to a couple of plays against a team that strives to have a standard of excellence in everything that they do. And that's why the Avs won tonight. So standard of excellence. Everyone have a fantastic evening. And we'll be back with you on Sunday, live from the XL Energy Center. So we look forward to that one. And we look forward to more Locked On Wild content coming up for you here tomorrow. Make sure to hit that like button. And more importantly, make sure to have a standard of excellence for your Saturday here as we move through March. You can find all of our Locked On Wild content by subscribing and following us on your favorite podcast platform. So make sure that you do so you don't miss out on our standard of excellence going forward. Locked On Wild has new episodes for you, plus pre- and post-game content every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.